this week, my family took a little road trip going up to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is a little different than Orlando in a lot of ways. But on the way, it's very different than Orlando because they have these things called turns and curves, and they have these things called hills. We don't have a good football team, apparently, but we do have hills and all of the other things. And so as we're driving, my kids who have mainly grown up in Orlando, even though like my wife is from Philly, we lived in Philly a long time, my kids have grown up here. They're used to here. They're used to straight roads unless you're going around a lake. They're used to things being flat unless you're going over like an overpass, but that's about it. And we're driving, and as we're driving, I think it might have been through Maryland or something like that, my youngest son goes, "We just keep going up and down and up and down and up and down. When is it going to stop?" And I don't know about you, but sometimes it feels like that's the way life is. Sometimes it feels like we're just going up and down and up and down, and we don't know when it's going to stop. And unfortunately, for many of us, sometimes we get to places where it goes up and then down, and that's where it feels like it stops. It stops in the valley. It doesn't stop where you're on the mountaintop forever. Maybe you've noticed that sometimes it seems like your lowest moment comes right after your highest one. Have you ever experienced that before? Like you have a great week. You get through a hard season. The thing that you were praying about finally breaks through. You win the battle that you thought you were going to lose. And then you crash. Anybody have that before? I have. But it's not because something new happened. It's not because you suddenly stopped loving God. It's just because maybe your soul hits the wall and says, "I'm done." Some of you this morning, you're like, "Hey, I'm good." Others of you, you're like, "I'm not really in a loud crisis," but you're just drained. You're tired. You've been holding it together. You've been staying faithful, and now you feel like you have this morning. But can I just, by raising your hand, we're going to start with being very honest this morning. If you at any point in your life have ever felt like, "I'm done, I've got nothing left to give," raise your hand. Anybody felt like that? Yeah. Some of you are like, "I feel that way now." Now, if you've never raised your hand, if you couldn't raise your hand, I pray that you don't ever get to that place, but chances are you're going to get to a moment in life where you feel like, "I've got nothing left to give. I've been faithful. I've been doing the right thing, but I've got nothing else." And if that's you, I want you to know something right away. You are not the first faithful person to feel empty. Elijah, one of the greatest prophets who ever lived, hits that exact moment in 1 Kings 19. And that's where we're going to spend most of our time this morning. So if you've got your Bible, you can open up to 1 Kings chapter 19 or grab the Bible app and get there, scan the QR code, and it'll get you to the notes there, and you can take your own notes. But I encourage you to read along with us and take notes if you can, because your notes may not be for today, but they may be for a moment down the road. And I pray that this will be something that you can kind of pull out of maybe your arsenal when you need to attack. But before we can kind of start reading in 19, we need to step into a little bit of the context of the story, because before 19 happens, 18 happens. It kind of makes sense that way, right? 18 happens, and in 18, Elijah, he's in the middle of this kind of battle, but it's not a battle necessarily with swords and weapons. It's a battle of prophet and God versus false God and false prophets. And Elijah, he's like, if he's got a resume, this is the highlight reel of his resume. in chapter 18, because he starts calling off all of these false prophets, and he starts making fun of Baal, and he's like, hey Baal, if you're really there, if you really exist, could you light this whole thing on fire? Can you do that? And the prophets of Baal are doing all kinds of stuff, trying to bring down some sort of fire, and it's not working. The prophets of Baal kind of give up. They don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, Elijah says, hey, why don't you put on some more water? Because even though you've got some wood up there, why don't you put on some water? Because my God is about to do something amazing. My God is about to do something incredible. And my God is about to do something that I want to make sure that there's no other way that this is possible except for through his power. They even pour water on this altar. And then all of a sudden, God's power, fire comes from heaven, lights the altar on fire. All of these prophets then are destroyed. It's like, boom. This is a mic drop moment for Elijah going, everything that I said about my God is true. He is real. He is powerful. And all of you false prophets, you're fake, you're false, and your God is also false as well. This is the one true God. Epic showdown, epic victory. It's victory, revival, glory. And then 19 starts. Verse 1. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done. Now Ahab, what you got to know is he's the king of Israel. And he's married to the queen whose name is Jezebel. And she's not Hebrew. She doesn't follow the Hebrew God. She is Phoenician, and she follows the Phoenician gods, and she's a huge supporter of Baal. And so all of her prophets just got destroyed. All of her prophets just got killed. She's not going to be happy with this. So this isn't Ahab going and saying, hey, wifey, this is some good news for you. Here's what happened. No, this is the husband walking in going, this is not going to be good. She is going to be angry. She is not going to be happy. And so Ahab told Jezebel everything that Elijah had done. And Jezebel then gets angry and she sends a message. May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like one of them. Translation, you're dead meat, Elijah. I'm coming after you. And Elijah, who just stared down 450 prophets, who just saw fire fall from heaven, he doesn't flex. He doesn't pray another bold prayer. He doesn't call down fire again. What does he do? He runs. 450 prophets. Stares him straight in the eye. Calls down fire from heaven. Word from one queen. One little threat. And now he runs. Even the faithful crash. In verse 3, Elijah was afraid and he ran for his life. He came to a broom bush, he sat under it, and he prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord. Take my life. Those of you that raised your hand a few moments ago, you've been in these moments. It's like things were going great. Things are awesome. I actually got the thing that I was praying for. And now that I have it, God, I'm done. God, this world would be better. My family would be better if I just wasn't even here. Maybe I should just quit my job because I'm just causing more problems here. We've had these moments where it feels like everything was perfect and all of a sudden now it's like, wait, no, nothing can go right. And I just don't want to give anymore. I've got nothing left to give because I just gave it the day before. But this isn't a rookie believer. This isn't someone who never really loved God. This is Elijah. Same man, same calling, same God, but now he is empty. And here's the first truth for those of you that feel like you've got nothing left to give. Burnout is not proof that you're fake. It's proof you're human. Elijah's crash teaches us something important, is that you can be faithful and still just be finished. You can be obedient, still be exhausted. You can be spiritual and still need a nap. And sometimes we think, man, if I was really strong in faith, I wouldn't feel like this. But Scripture refuses to let us shame ourselves that way. And Elijah doesn't say this. He doesn't say, I don't believe anymore. Notice that. Like, he's not lost his faith in God. He's just lost his desire and will and energy to try anymore. Like, God, I still believe you can do all those things. Man, use somebody else. God, I still believe you can do that whole fire thing. You don't need me. I'm burnt out. I'm done. I'm toast. I've got nothing left to give. He doesn't say, I don't believe anymore. He says, I'm empty. And notice that God doesn't respond with disgust. God responds with care. In verse 5, then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. And he looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. Man, when you're tired, you're sleepy, there is nothing better than some hot carbs. Man, give me some good bread, some water, a nap. Notice what God does first. He doesn't give a lecture. It's not a rebuke. Doesn't give him a new assignment. God feeds him. God lets him sleep. Then he wakes him gently and gives bread and water. And after Elijah eats and lies down again, God does it a second time. Get up and eat. See, many times we get to the point where we're tired and we're like, my soul's got nothing left. And we're like, God, just fix my heart. God, just fix my heart. God, just fix it all. Change me. Give me just supernatural energy and keep that flowing. God, that's all that I need. We skip right to the fix my heart, but sometimes God says, let me help your body first. Because sometimes the most holy things you can do is rest. Sometimes the breakthrough you need isn't a new verse, it's a deep sleep. Sometimes you're not in rebellion, you're in depletion. And so maybe your prayer today isn't, God, give me a new task. Maybe it's, God, help me recover enough to keep walking. And here's the cool thing. God's not annoyed by your limits. He built you with them. He knows you are dust. He remembers that you are finite. And he meets you at the broom tree with practical mercy. And so if your soul feels dead, maybe check to see if your body is drained. God's not less present on your couch than he is in your quiet time. He's there. The same God who commands worship also commanded Elijah to sleep. And so after that, Elijah travels for 40 days to Horeb, the mountain of God. And then this is what happens in verse 9. It says, the word of the Lord came to him. What are you doing, Elijah? Why are you here, Elijah? And you think God's asking him because he's not sure? He just needs Elijah to give him that information? No, he wants Elijah to process this, to say it aloud, like verbally say, what is going on? And Elijah answers, I've been very zealous for the Lord. I'm the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too. Look at Elijah's empty heart language. I've been zealous. I've given everything I have, God. They've rejected you. I didn't reject you. They rejected you. I'm the only one left. I'm all alone, and they're trying to kill me. Have you ever felt like this before? Have you ever felt like I am carrying my entire workplace on my shoulders? I'm the only one following God in my workplace, and I'm trying to do it the right way, and it seems like I'm the only one holding it together. How about this? Have you ever felt like I'm the only one in my home trying to hold this whole family together? I'm the only one in my extended family that follows you, God. I'm trying. I'm doing everything I can. And nobody else around me is doing anything. It feels like you are all alone. And then God says, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. And then the story describes wind, fire, an earthquake, all of these loud things. But God's not in any of those. In verse 12, and after the fire came a gentle whisper. Some translations call it a still small voice. In the Hebrew, it's kind of described as a thin silence. Just barely even enough for there to be something. God meets Elijah not with a spectacle, but with a soft, personal presence. See, when you have nothing, God oftentimes comes quietly. Not because he's far, but because you're fragile. And Elijah covers his face because even in his emptiness, he realizes and recognizes that the presence of God is holy. But I want you to notice this order. It's presence first, purpose later. It's presence of God first, purpose later. Because God knows you don't need a new job description when you're empty. You need him. Many times when we feel depleted, we can't do anything else. We feel like I just need to completely change everything that I'm doing, latch on to something new that will maybe pull me out of this rut. And God is sitting there going, the one place that I put you in, that I was needing you to recognize that you needed me. You didn't need an escape. You didn't need something else to latch onto. You needed in this moment to recognize and to realize that it was only me that you needed. And God asks again, what are you doing here, Elijah? And then Elijah repeats his grief almost word for word, and God does. Very beautiful. He doesn't argue. He doesn't say, nah, stop feeling that way. Suck it up, buttercup. Drink a Red Bull. You'll be all right. Get through it. He doesn't shame him. He gives him next steps. Go back the way you came. Anoint Hazael. Anoint Jehu. Anoint Elisha. He doesn't give him a 20-year vision. He doesn't give him an overwhelming manual for the rest of his life. He doesn't give him a massive strategy that he's got to figure out. He just goes, here's what's next. Here's your next step. And then after that, God directly challenges Elijah's loneliness lie. Verse 18, yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal. See, Elijah thought he was alone. And God says, you're not. He thought it was over, and God says, I'm still working. He thought he was the last one, and God says, I have thousands that you don't even see. And here's what that means for you. When you are empty, your perspective shrinks. Have you ever noticed that? When you're tired, when you're empty, when you're in that self-pity moment, all you can see is yourself and your small circumstances, and everything else just kind of blurs or goes away. You can't see what God is doing. You can't see who God is holding. You can't see that the story is bigger than your pain. But God's still God, even if you don't see it, even if you can't feel it. And he restores you not by demanding what you don't have, but by guiding you along what he's giving you, one step at a time. So many of us, we're in this situation now. We're heading into a situation like this, or maybe we've been out of this situation before. Or maybe some of you are like, I'm not in this situation, but I know somebody who is. So what do I do with this? What do I do when I have nothing left? Or how do I help somebody when they have nothing left? And so this morning, I want to give you 5 handles that you can put in your hands this week. And the first one is this: name your emptiness honestly to God. Name your emptiness honestly to God. Elijah didn't sanitize his prayer. He didn't pretend he was okay. He just told the truth. God can handle your honesty. Now, notice, I didn't say disrespect or dishonor God. This is not for you to just unload and unleash and whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying is that God can handle the truth. Hebrews 4:15-16, it says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with us in our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin." Do you remember when Jesus was led out into the desert, when he was led out to be tempted, and he was exhausted, and he had been fasting, and he was weak, and it was right at that moment that when he's at his weakest, that he's going to be tempted with lie after lie after lie. He knows what it's like. Can you imagine what it was like to literally be drained of your blood because of the beating that he took on the cross for us? And then to carry his cross. And on top of that, the weight of all of our sin on him. Do we not think that he can't empathize with being tired, with being weak? With feeling like, man, there's nothing left I have to give. Father, why have you forsaken me? We have a high priest who has been tempted in every way just as we are, yet he did not sin. Let us then approach God's throne. Here's the great thing. Many of us, when we think of God's throne, we think of, I am scared and I must come to his throne and hope that he does not smite me because of what I did yesterday. He won't kill me because I feel like giving up. That's not the kind of throne that we're approaching. What is his throne of? His throne of grace. It's amazing. So many times we see God and we're like, oh, I'm going to this throne and it must be this big, majestic throne and he's there wielding some sort of lightning rod, ready to come after me every time I do something wrong. And yet it's more like he's in your grandpa's rocking chair and he's waiting for you to climb up in his lap so he can rock you and he can take care of you. It's a throne of grace, and approach it with confidence. So that, why? So we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. We have a high priest who sympathizes so we can approach the throne of grace with confidence. So this week, pray to God without editing. We do this so many times in our prayers, right? Watch when your kids pray, like at a meal or something, and see what happens. They'll start praying and they'll use language that no one has used for 100 years. God, would you bless this food to our bodies? It's not even like in the right way that we would talk. We say all kinds of things and we just say it because it's kind of the memorized way. God, would you be with me today? God, would you protect me? God, would you protect my family? God, thank you. And we kind of go through even our prayers sometimes, and it's like we're just going through the motions. But this week, name your emptiness honestly to God. Tell God, hey, I'm tired. God, I'm angry. God, I'm scared. God, I feel like I've got nothing left. Honest prayer is not a lack of faith. It's faith that God is safe and that he cares. It's faith that he is the one that can actually do something about your weakness. That he could actually move through your weakness. So name your emptiness, honestly, God. Second, receive rest as obedience, not laziness. Now, I know that we can swing this pendulum real far one way or the other, right? And I think our culture does this sometimes. Sometimes our culture goes into the side where it's like, hey, like we're not supposed to work and life is supposed to be easy and everything's rest. And then sometimes our culture goes into this like fast-paced craziness where it's like, hey, if we're not working, if we're not hustling hard 24/7 and have 3 side hustles and do this, then we're not going to be able to provide for our families. We're not going to be able to make it up the chain that we want to. We're not going to be able to do. We're not going to be able to succeed. Like we got to work. And so I'm not talking about the laziness, and maybe if that's you today, maybe this is not the thing for you, but maybe you need to remind somebody else. So this is not an excuse to be lazy, but I think many times we go the opposite way, and we think rest at all is lazy. God's first move for Elijah was sleep and food, which is a reminder that rest isn't a reward for finishing. Rest is part of faithfulness. Rest is part of obedience. Remember that whole keep the Sabbath? Keep it holy. Keep this time set apart that you would be with God and that you wouldn't have all of these other things that you're doing, that your body would rest, that your mind would rest, that your emotions and your spirit would rest, and that you would focus on your relationship with God. And yet so often we completely skip over that. And we act as if, well, we don't need that anymore. I'm just going to go until I die. I've even seen pastors that kind of live this way. You hear them talk and they'll even make like a joke of like, man, the best way for me to go is if I was up there preaching and I would just die right there on the spot. Give it all for Jesus. I mean, if you're 85, cool. Like 90, cool. Like you've lived a great life and that's all you had, fine. But if you're 40, that's not a good way to go. That's not a healthy way to go. That's not an obedient way to go, most likely, because it's like you're putting all of this weight on your shoulders and acting as if you're God and not Him. Some of us are proud of running on empty, but God doesn't call that strength. He calls it pride, and it's unsustainable. Matthew 11, Jesus reminds us, hey, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Doesn't say I will give you another job. He does give us a great commission, but he also says, I'm going to give you rest. If you're depleted, your spiritual assignment may be to sleep, eat, take a walk, say no, cancel something, quit something, breathe. Rest isn't quitting, it's trusting God to be God while you're not. The third handle, bring your not enough to Jesus anyway. Sometimes we feel like I got maybe a little bit left, but it's probably not enough. It's not worth it. Do you remember when Jesus was out and teaching the masses? They're too far from a town and the people are getting hangry. He's like, I need them to listen, but they're not listening anymore because now they're getting hungry. We gotta feed these people. And they're kind of looking around going, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And the disciples are like, well, we got a little fish and a little bread here. And remember what Jesus does? He takes their very, very little and he multiplies it. He does what only he can. And he takes little and he does a miracle. It's okay to recognize that you've got very little. It's okay to recognize that you are weak and then to place your weakness, to place your little in his hands and then trust him to do the miracle. Trust him to do what only he can do anyways. You may feel like, I don't have enough energy to serve. I don't have patience to parent. I don't have faith to keep hoping. I don't have words to pray. Bring that to him. Stop waiting to feel full before you come to God. Come empty. That's where multiplication starts. Fourth handle, don't isolate. Reach for people. Don't isolate, reach for people. Elijah's exhaustion kind of distorts his reality. Right? He cries out, I'm the only one left. There's nobody else here. Nobody else is trying. Nobody else is helping. Nobody else is following you, God. That's what depletion does. It lies to you. You ever notice when you're really tired, that's when you become really susceptible to hearing a lot of lies from the enemy. You weren't good enough anyways. You weren't smart enough anyways. Nobody was really listening to you anyways. Nobody really cares about you anyways. You probably can't make that much of a difference anyways. All of that happens when you're tired. You listen to these lies. Makes you think that you're alone, unseen, and unsupported. And Elijah just wants to run away, but the answer is not that. And our answer is not to run away or to isolate when we feel like everything's on us and we got nothing else. The answer at that point is to do what Galatians 6 says and to bear one another's burdens. Hey, I need to put myself in with somebody else. I've got to be around some other believers that are going to be encouraging me, praying for me, lifting me up. Ecclesiastes 4, verse 9 and 10 talks about that two are better than one, and if either falls, one can help the other up. But isn't it amazing? So many times, even at our weakest, even when we feel like we have nothing left to give, we still hold on to our pride and we do the great American thing. And people will ask us, hey, how are you doing? And we'll be like, good. You're literally like holding on to nothing. I'm good. What would happen is if we were actually honest and somebody asked, how are you doing? We're like, I'm not well. I'm really tired. Now, when you're really tired, your emotions think nobody cares. And they don't want to hear your problems anyway. But right now, you guys are probably energized a little bit. You worshiped this morning. You had coffee, maybe a muffin or so. And so you got a little bit of energy right now. And so let's think logically real quick. Do many of us think that if you were to go around to one of the other believers in this room and they were to ask, hey, how are you doing? And you told them, I'm not doing well. I'm spent. I don't know if I got much left. Do you really think that the other people in this room would be like, well, that stinks. Hope you do okay with that, and then walk off? Like logically, we could say, nobody's going to do that. Drew, you wouldn't do that to somebody, right? No, you're not going to do that. Nobody in this room would do that. But when we are emotionally drained, our emotions lie to us and say that's what they do. They don't really care. Even if they said they cared, they really wouldn't care. And God is going, man, I've given all of you as gifts to each other that you could lift each other up, that you could carry one another's burdens. And you're at the very end and you got nothing left. But you won't let go of your pride to say, I need help. All the while, the person sitting right next to you might have the solution to your problem, or they might at least be able to give you a hug and be like, you're not alone. So what do you do? Well, if you're that person, maybe somebody's not going to ask you today, how are you doing? But most of you in this room probably have a phone, and you might have a friend or at least a good acquaintance that is a believer. What could you do? Send a text to somebody and be like, hey, could you pray for me? I'm not doing well. Just see what happens. Put yourself out there. Open yourself up that God might use the body to build you up, to lift you up. Tell somebody, hey, I'm not okay right now. Let the body of Christ be the body of Christ. And then the fifth handle is this. Take the next faithful step, not the whole staircase. We've all seen the movie Elf, right? And Elf's never been to the big city. He's never been in a mall. He's never been in any of these places. And he sees this escalator. And he's kind of looking all the way up at the escalator, like looking at people going up and down. And it's overwhelming. And he starts to kind of freak out. And so what does he do? He's like, I got to stay here, down here, 1 foot on solid ground, and yet I've also got to go all the way up there. And so he stretches all the way out, and you just see him like all the way up the escalator like that. And so many times we feel like, oh, I've got to make this huge leap to get out of the pit. And God's like, you don't need to get out of the pit with one big jump. You just need to take the next step of obedience. God didn't give Elijah a 5-year plan. He gave him a next step. When you're empty, the future sometimes feels hostile. So God to daily bread. And he says, I'm enough. Psalm 119, 105 is, your word is a lamp unto my feet, not a floodlight for 15 miles. So ask God, what's my next act of obedience? Not everything. Just, God, what do I do today? Isaiah 40, 29 through 31 says that he gives power to the faint. Those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. Not those who hustle harder, not those who pretend they're fine, those who wait, lean on him, who receive. So come to him with your honest prayer, with your exhausted body, with your small offering, with your weakness, with your need for people, with your next step. Because when you have nothing left to give, you haven't reached the end of God's supply. He's God. You've just reached the place where his strength can finally be your source. Would you pray with me this morning?